This is Curl Up with a Cat Tale, and I'm Gwen Cooper, the New York Times bestselling author of numerous cat-centric titles, including Homer's Odyssey, A Fearless Feline Tale, or How I Learned About Love and Life with a Blind Wonder Cat, Spray Anything, More True Tales of Homer and the Gang, and The Book of Possum, Head Bonks, Raspy Tongues, and 101 Reasons Why Cats Make Us So happy. We're here to celebrate all things feline and to tell inspirational cat tales. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of Curl Up with a Cat Tale with Gwen Cooper. I, of course, am Gwen Cooper, your host, and thrilled to be here with you at the tail end of what must be the coldest and rainiest Memorial Day weekend that I can remember possibly ever having spent. So it's right at the end of Memorial Day now as I'm recording this, and it's starting to get a little bit sunny here in New Jersey, but it has just been cloudy and raining and pretty cold, actually, nonstop since Friday. It's unbelievable. We just apparently it was not on the cards for us to have a real Memorial Day weekend this year. But even though you wouldn't know it, to be here in New Jersey right now, summer is officially kicking off, and I, for one, am looking forward to the post-pandemic summer that they've been promising us, and hopefully that's going to deliver. But in the immediate short term and later on in this episode, we're going to be speaking with Shawn Flynn. So Shawn Flynn is an author, and he also writes about cats, and you should definitely check him out if you are not familiar with him already. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we speak with Shawn later in today's episode. But he is really actually coming on the show to talk to us or to tell us this amazing story about an outdoor cat who he has befriended over a period of 12 years. So he started feeding this cat in his backyard 12 years ago, and this winter, he was finally able to bring her indoors and introduce him to the rest of his human and feline family and give her finally an indoor forever home. And it's just an incredible story and certainly something inspirational for all of us who take care of outdoor cats and dream of being able to give them a better life someday. So I am looking forward to speaking with him, and I hope you guys are looking forward to hearing from him. And I also want to put in a little plug here, as long as we're speaking about our favorite authors. Of course, Sy Montgomery, a famous naturalist, New York Times bestselling author, National Book Award finalist. She's a friend of the show. She was on the podcast a few weeks ago. Actually, we did a 2-part interview with Sy Montgomery, and it was certainly our honor and our pleasure to have her here on the show with us. And just to put in a plug for those of you who are fans and enthusiasts of her work, although this is not a book about cats per se, or not even per se, it is actually not a book about cats. But Sy Montgomery does have a new book out, and it's called The Hummingbird's Gift, Wonder, Beauty, and Renewal on Wings. And it is just an absolutely gorgeous book. And if you are an animal lover, which chances are you probably are if you're listening to this show, and if you are a fan of Sy Montgomery's, then I absolutely encourage you to check this book out. It really is just beautiful. It's about hummingbirds, specifically about a woman who rescues baby hummingbirds, which are just these incredibly fragile, peanut-sized little creatures, and cares for them until they are big and strong and recovered enough to live on their own in the wild. So these are abandoned baby hummingbirds that she takes care of. And it's really just such an amazing story. It's such an amazing book. There are pages and pages of beautiful color photos in the book, by the way. And I definitely encourage anyone listening to this who is a fan of animals in general, or Sy Montgomery, or certainly hummingbirds, this is definitely something you want to check out. And speaking of animals and our enthusiasm for them, so this week, June 4th, is National Hug Your Cat Day. I don't know how many of you guys already knew that or have it marked on your calendars. If you are like me, probably every day in your house is National Hug Your Cat Day, whether or not your cat actually appreciates it. You know, I will say that my cats like to hug me. Clayton in particular, he practically lives in my lap, and he is a very touchy, feely little cat. He's pretty much always on top of me. He's actually sitting in my lap now. I'm trying to poke and prod him a little. I'm hoping he will meow and give some sign of his presence. But they don't, my cats don't necessarily like it when I'm the one hugging them, when I'm the one grabbing and squeezing them. So not every cat is into that, but June 4th is National Hug Your Cat Day. So definitely give your kitties a squeeze. If they won't let you give them a full-on hug, give them a little love pat or a little, just a little squeeze. I can't be, and I am a big fan. I am all for anything that celebrates cats. I love National Hug Your Cat Day, National Black Cat Day, National Cat Appreciation Day. I'm definitely an enthusiast of all these things, but I can't be the only one who notices that there just seem to be a lot more of these official something days than there used to be. I don't remember, even 10 years ago, there being so many like National Cheeseburger Day or I don't know, National Ice Cream Day, or I'm now listing a lot of food ones, which should show you where my head is at right this second. But you know what I mean? There's all of these different kinds of cat appreciation days, and then there's National Puppy Day, and I know that there's, I remember like Mother's Day and Father's Day, and I think there was like a Secretary's Day thrown in there somewhere, National Grandparents Day, Flag Day. It just seems like there are a lot more of these really specific celebratory days than there used to be, which is fine. I think it's great. I always think it's great to have something to celebrate. I just wonder where they all come from and what makes them official. I know obviously there are some national holidays that are official acts of Congress, but the rest of these seem to be coming from some sort of like celebratory day factory somewhere that's just churning them out. And I, for one, would love to know what that's all about and where they're coming from and how I could create one of my own, maybe. Because I definitely, I would love to have some sort of a national day. We have National Cat Appreciation Day, which is great. I would love to have a National Cat Appreciators Appreciation Day, when people like us who appreciate cats can ourselves be appreciated. Because I feel that while the internet has collectively seemed to agree that cats are funny and awesome, there's still kind of a little bit of a stigma attached, I think, to the people who love cats. And so maybe if we had our own day, and our own appreciation day, a Cat Appreciators Appreciation Day, maybe that stigma would start to fade. Maybe we could do away with some of the ignorance around the kind of person who loves cats. And of course, there is no kind of person who loves cats except for, an awesome person. And speaking of that, I'm just all about the segues today. I'm just zipping right through. So I think some of you guys, hopefully most of you listening to this, are already familiar with my book, The Book of Possum. And that's like the word awesome, but with a P at the beginning. The Book of Possum, Head Bonks, Raspy Tongues, and 101 Reasons Why Cats Make Us So, So Happy. And as you know, I am hard at work. I have been for the last month or so on a sequel to that book, which is going to be coming out in just a few weeks. And that book is called You Are Possum, Reasons Why Your Cats Love You and Why Loving Them Back Makes You a Better Person. And so the first book, the title is pretty self-descriptive, right? It's just great things that we love about cats. And so it's everything from head bonks and raspy tongues to the fact that cats are excellent judges of character, that cats are nature's comedians, various funny and wonderful things that cats do. It's a fun book. And so this book kind of takes the opposite approach. This is why do we know? So the first book is talking about why we love our cats. And the second book is going to talk about why our cats love us, the things that we do that make our cats happy. And so I've got like a great list so far that I'm writing my way through. And these are just really, really fun books to write. I hope you guys have at least half as much fun reading them as I have writing them, because I've written many books, and certainly many books about cats at this point in my long and storied literary career. But the possum books are definitely the most fun for me. I just have so much fun. I look forward every morning to getting up and working on this book, and it's been a great joy. And I would love to hear from you guys about some of the things that you do for your cats or for cats in general that makes them happy. And, I've talked, like today I wrote, for example, a great little kind of mini essay. You guys have heard me talk previously about my cats who are very social cats. They are very into people. They are very friendly. They are nobody's idea of feral cats or anything approaching that. But they are weirdly skittish about certain things. And one thing, for example, like the Clayton gets very, very afraid of are certain things on TV. And I've discussed this, like the Mad Men opening credits terrify Clayton for reasons I'm not quite sure of. And so we have learned when we do watch Mad Men reruns to just skip right through the credits for Clayton's peace of mind, because he is always, Clayton being Clayton, he's never not with me. So if I'm watching Mad Men, Clayton is watching Mad Men. So I always skip past the credits, which I'm actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is probably something I should add to this list. But it's not always as straightforward as that. Sometimes something will come up. I mean, I don't know what it is about the Mad Men opening credits that terrifies Clayton, or why that is, but you can't always predict what the next thing that terrifies him is going to be. And so watching TV with Clayton, especially for watching like a superhero movie and there's like noise or fighting or lasers, can be a little bit of a dicey experience. And so whenever we're watching something and something scares Clayton, and he runs over to me and I scoop him up in my arms and I hold him until it's over, or until we can get the volume down, or until he's not scared anymore. And so that is definitely a thing. We hold them when they're scared, right? This is one of the things that we all do for our cats that makes them feel better, that makes them feel loved and secure. We hold them when they're scared. We comfort them when they're afraid. And so I have a long list of these kind of things, but I would love to hear from you guys and some of your ideas or some of the things that you do. And please, if you have anything that you would like to suggest or contribute, and not just for this book, but for the podcast, or anything that you would like to say to me in general, please keep it PG-13. And you can find me on my website at GwenCooper.com, GwenCooper.com. You can reach me via email at Gwen, Gwen, at GwenCooper.com. You can also leave comments on my website on the page that is dedicated to this podcast. I always check out the comments and I always reply to them, maybe not instantaneously, but within a couple of days. And so I definitely invite you to check that out as well. And this is also just a heads up to my Patreon community, to my supporters at the $10 level or higher. You will this week be getting some early excerpts, some sneak peeks at the Book of Possum in progress, or I'm sorry, the sequel to the Book of Possum, to You Are Possum in progress. And I'm very excited to share that with you. And Patreon, for those of you who are not familiar, it is a platform that basically it allows you to be a patron of artists whose work you support, appreciate, want to encourage. You can be a supporter on Patreon for as low as $3 a month. And in addition to getting to support artists you care about, you get cool insider perks and things. Again, for example, some people this week will be having a private video chat with me. Some will be getting sneak peeks at my books in progress. Also this month, we are going to be sending out our first round of official tote bags, Curl Up with a Cattail tote bags with a picture of Homer on them. And the design is so, so cute. I'm so excited about it. And this is a tote bag that is only going to go to Patreon supporters, to Patreon supporters at the $25 level or higher. So this is not something that anybody can buy anywhere. This is an exclusive kind of thing. And I'm really excited. It's such a cute design. And this is going to be the first month that we're sending them out. So some of you guys, get excited for that. And of course, everybody at the $5 level or higher gets a shout out at least once a month on my podcast. And so I'm going to share the names of some of my supporters right now. Now, if you are a supporter on Patreon at the $5 level or higher and you don't hear your name this week, you will hear it either next week or the week after. It is a nice long list at this point, and I do not want to test everybody's patience by reading the whole thing at once. So this is just a partial list. And if you're looking for my Patreon page, by the way, that's Patreon, P-A-T as in Thomas, R-E-O-N as in Nancy.com/Gwen Cooper. That's all one word. And I think I've discussed this on a previous podcast, but all of my Patreon supporters are enabling me to go back to school and take a course on marketing statistics and quantitative analysis that I am using to help market the self-published books that I am now writing and starting to put out. And so I really could not be doing any of this without you guys. And you are enabling me to start my own business and to grow it and to bring my love of cats to more cat lovers everywhere. And I thank you for that. I really am humbled and grateful for your support. And with no further ado, here's a partial list of my Patreon community. Maurice Cisneros. And by the way, if I mispronounce your name, please do email me and let me know that I've mispronounced it so that I do not make the same mistake the next month and mispronounce your name the same way again. Marie Cisneros, Dawn Cole, Ronald Coltnow, Allison Amsterdam, Christina DeSalvo, Hella Johnson, Melissa Ratchko, Ken Kistner, Cynthia Erdley, Nancy Ross, let's see, Meg, whose last name is withheld, Jean W.F., Emily Stafford, Jill Graves, Debbie Bradley, Amy Neal, Angela Carter, Kathy Schlichternlein, Heather Hambrick, Aldana Bermontis, Calvin and Eileen Keener, or is it Kiner? I'm not sure. Please let me know. Again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Wendy Lynch, L. Shannon Carter, Rana Miller Owen, Deborah Visvari, and Zoe Shino. Thank you guys so much again for your incredible support. It really does mean the world to me. And we're going to take a short break now for about 30 seconds or so. And when we come back, we will be speaking with Shawn Flynn about the latest addition to his feline family, 12 years in the making. It's a really incredible story. So be sure to stick around for more Curl Up with a Cattail. Thanks so much for sticking around. My guest today is one of my very favorite cat authors. You may know him as the author of the touching memoir, The Kitty Who Rescued Me After I Rescued Him. And if you haven't read it yet, you definitely should. He's also a dedicated volunteer with several cat rescue organizations, as well as being a devoted cat dude for his own brood of indoor and outdoor cats. He's joining us today to tell us the story of Keena, an outdoor cat who recently came to live with him indoors. And I just know that this is going to be an amazing story. Please welcome Shawn Flynn. Hello, Shawn Flynn. How are you?
Hey, Gwen. Good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on your program today.
I am delighted to have you on. And, so for those of you listening, Shawn is one of those great people who I have met through writing about my cats. And he also writes about his cats. And we have communicated many times. We're actually in pretty frequent communication over the last several years, but this is the first time we're actually talking to each other. It's just so crazy, the social media universe that we live in, where you feel like you know people you've never actually spoken with.
Yeah, it's great that we finally get to connect directly.
Do I sound the way you thought I would? Does my voice sound the same as it did in your head when you were reading my book?
Well, I've certainly, seen you on the internet plenty of times. I've listened to your podcasts. And so I kind of feel like I know you pretty well already.
That is fair enough. I have to say, just based on your pictures, I expected you to sound a little bit more like Paul Bunyan. That's the reason I ask.
That's funny.
Not that there's anything wrong with the way you sound, just in my head, you sounded like this movie of Paul Bunyan that I had seen when I was a kid.
That's funny.
But anyway, getting into the subject at hand, which is not trees, it is cats. And yes, so tell us, how many cats do you live with currently?
I currently have 5 indoor cats and 1 dog. So I have a canine as well.
So that is a very outnumbered dog. How does he relate? Does he think he's one of the cats?
Well, it's a she, and her name is Bella. We recently acquired her several months back. Unfortunately, we had a death in the family, and she's an older dog. She's about 12 years old, and she needed a place to live. So, Carrie and I said, well, why don't we have Bella come here and live with us?
That is wonderful. And I would just like to say, and this is something I think is always bears reminding people of, to please consider what might happen to your pets if you are no longer around, God forbid. Anybody who works in rescue will tell you that there are just so many heartbreaking stories about senior animals who end up in shelters because someone passed away and none of their family or friends was willing to take their cat or their dog in. And so it's always good to think about that contingency, if there's no one who immediately comes to mind who would do so for you.
Yeah, I certainly have made arrangements to have all of my pets taken care of if Carrie and I were unable to take care of them.
Which is good to know. So how is Bella settling in with the cats?
Oh, Bella's fine. At first, they were kind of uncertain. Gypsy swatted Bella in the nose once, and so did Tigger. Buddy actually wouldn't even come downstairs from the second floor for a couple of weeks, but everyone's totally settled in now.
Well, that is good to hear. I always say that when I first moved in with Lawrence, that my oldest cat, Scarlet, who is definitely the disciplinarian in the group. And I think in her mind, Lawrence was just the largest and most annoying cat that she had ever been forced to live with. But he was still just another cat. And so she tried to discipline him the same way she disciplined the other cats with, little swats of her paw to kind of bring him in line.
Great.
Yeah. So I'm wondering what your cats must think of Bella, having lived only among other cats for so many years.
Yeah, they think Bella's fine. Like, Tina hasn't met Bella yet, but that's because we're still kind of integrating Keena into the household.
Yeah, so now I definitely want to talk about Keena. So in addition to your indoor cats, there are outdoor cats who you also feed.
Yes, there are several cats. They actually come and go, but currently there's 2 or 3 of them that I see on a fairly frequent basis. Keena was one of them. She actually has lived in my backyard for 12 years. I met her in 2009, the summer of 2009. I had always fed the backdoor or backyard cats since I've lived where I currently live. I moved here in 2006, and I met Keena in 2009. And, I always thought she was a feral cat. She never let me get closer than 25 feet to her. So, I always just thought she was a feral cat. I fed her and, put fresh water out there every morning. And fast forward to this past winter, we had a really cold spell. And
wait. Before you fast forward, because that's a long fast forward over, 11 or 12 years. And so my first question is, obviously there have been cold winters and blizzards and bad weather during that period of time. And yet it's only recently that Bella has come, that Keena has come to live indoors with you. And so was she not around during those was she in your backyard every day for 12 years, or did she sort of come and go and disappear for long periods of time?
She would come and go and disappear, as you've suggested. But she's also lived in my next door neighbor's the shed in his backyard. Plus, I have what I call cat condos on the porch. I've made these like styrofoam coolers, and I've packed them with straw, and so the cats generally only use those when it's really cold out, or when there's like a big blizzard or something like that.
So Kina would disappear then, I'm guessing, for months at a time, that there were times where there was bad weather and she either that she wasn't around, that you weren't sure where she was, or did you know where she was?
I wouldn't say months at a time. I mean, I might have gone 3 or 4 or 5 days without seeing her, but I definitely didn't go months without seeing her.
So I guess my question is then, what was it about this past winter? And I will say, and you're in Connecticut, I believe, and I'm in New Jersey, so your weather has probably not been that different from mine, that our February this year was exceptionally snowy. It just snowed like the entire month of February, or so it seemed to me. Of course, I'm from Miami Beach originally, so any snow seems like a lot of snow. But I've been up here for 20 years, and it seemed like a very intense winter this year. I don't know if that factored into your decision making, but I'm curious as to why it was this year and not, say, last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago when you decided to try to bring Kina indoors.
Well, this past winter, for us here in Connecticut, I actually think we had a mild winter, except during a 3 or 4 week period in like mid January to like, earlier mid February. And it was late January. I saw, I'd been seeing her hanging around the porch a lot more frequently. And it was really cold. It was like 0 degrees at night. One night I went out to get firewood and she was hanging out on the porch. And I'm like, I'm going to go get her a nice warm bowl of food. So I got a can of cat food, heated it up in the microwave, put it on the back porch, and she wolfed it down. Well, anyway, she wouldn't leave the back porch after that. So, I just kept putting warm food out for her every morning and evening. And I did this for 3 or 4 or 5 days. And then one night I was actually able to coax her into the garage.
Now and I'm sorry to interrupt. So you made this decision to try to bring her indoors. And I'm just wondering, what was the immediate prompt for this decision? What happened that made you say, you know what, today I've been seeing this cat in my backyard for 12 years, but today is the day that I'm going to try to get her inside?
Because she was actually, acting more friendly. I mean, she wouldn't run from the back porch when I went out to get firewood, for example.
And she had been running away from you more or less for 12 years, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is a long time to be feeding a cat essentially every day and have her still not quite sure that you're a 100% stand-up guy.
And that's why I always thought she was feral.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And what do you think made her decide suddenly? And by the way, I always say to people, and I feel like my cat Scarlet was not feral per se. She was adopted by me as a very young kitten. But I always say that for the first 3 or 4 years, Scarlet and I were almost like roommates. We would kind of pass each other by. And as she was friendly, I was the only person she tolerated at all. But it was really 3 or 4 years before she became a come up and cuddle kind of a cat with me. Still not all the time and never with anybody else. But I think a lot of people listening will relate to this idea that it can take a long time to build a relationship with a cat, to build that kind of rapport. And it certainly sounds like it in this case. It sounds like it was 12 years in the making. And you say she started acting a little friendlier. And was it as subtle as that she wasn't running away when you came out to get firewood? Did she ever try to approach you and anything like that?
Well, no, she wouldn't approach me until, she lived in the garage for probably 3 or 4 weeks before she even rubbed up against my leg.
So you decided to try to bring her indoors, and was she reluctant to come inside at first?
Yeah, she was. She wasn't sure. I had the door to the back porch open. And again, it was 0 degrees out. So it was very cold. And she had gotten used to me giving her canned food. She had never had canned food before.
Okay.
For the 12 years that I'd been feeding her on the porch, I fed her, crunchies.
So the canned food must have smelled very tempting for her.
Oh, yeah. Plus it was warm, and I heated it up in the microwave for her. And so I kind of sat down on the step to go inside the house with the door open. And I was talking to her, and and I had the bowl of food instead of putting it out on the back porch, and I kind of had it. And, so I kind of coaxed her in with the bowl of food, and she came in. She wouldn't get near me, though. She hid underneath the cars.
And I'm sorry, wait, and I'm going to interrupt you again, because we've not yet described, I know, and I've forgotten that people listening do not know this. I've seen your pictures of Kina on Facebook and on social media. But describe to us what Kina looks like. I want people to really be able to picture this as you're telling the story. What kind of a cat is she? What does she look like?
Sure. She's a domestic short hair. She's all black. She weighs probably around 10 or 11 pounds, especially since she's been eating so well and put on so much weight.
So she's not a huge cat, but not tiny either.
No, she's, you know what, a typical size female domestic short hair.
Gotcha. Okay. And so she is tempted by the warm, moist food. She is starting to tentatively come indoors. Now, did you keep her, once she came into the garage to eat the food, did you close the door and keep her in, or was she going back and forth between inside and outside for a while?
No, I closed the door and kept her in. However, a couple of times she actually got out, like when I was bringing in firewood or just, walking through the door, she kind of scooted out. But she sat down, and I, left the door open and was able to coax her back in, and she came right back in.
Did it seem stressful for her being indoors once you got her in, once she'd finished eating?
Actually, I don't think so, because I think it was almost like she was relieved. We put a nice a cat bed out there with a litter box and, bowl of water and, right next to her food bowl. So she knew that was kind of like, we were making that for her. That was her kind of like safe place.
And the reason I want to emphasize this, by the way, is because I think a lot of people listening will probably have fed a backyard cat or may be in the ongoing process of feeding a backyard. I have a backyard cat who I feed. And of course, I always emphasize on this show the difference between feral cats and domestic cats. And it can be difficult to tell. And sometimes a cat who initially started out in a home has been outside for so long that you can't really tell. But I do want people listening to this and maybe becoming encouraged at the idea of trying to convert an outdoor cat into being an indoor cat, to keep in mind that you do always have to follow the cat's lead, that even if it seems very obvious to you that life is better indoors than outdoors, you want to make sure that you're not making things stressful for the cat, because that is going to be ultimately bad for both of you.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, it has to be their idea.
Or at least they have to think it's their idea.
Absolutely. Every step that Kina and I have taken together since January, it's been her idea.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that's great to hear. So tell us a little bit more. So she started, she seemed okay and kind of relieved to be inside, and she was warming up to the food and to the shelter that you were providing. And so what happened next?
Sure. Well, I had to, of course, take her to the vet. I wanted to get her spayed. I wanted to, get flea and tick treatment for her. I wanted to, get her shots, things like that. So I made an appointment, or actually the cat rescue organization here in Enfield that I'm affiliated with, we were able to make an appointment for me to take Kina to the vet in March. Well, as it turned out, she had already been spayed.
Interesting. And now her ear's not been lopped in any way, which is usually with a TNR program where a feral cat is spayed or neutered and then returned to their original environment, let's say to the territory they were originally occupying. Usually the rescue organization will ear tip the cat so that somebody looking can tell that this cat has already been spayed or neutered. And so nobody had done that in this case. So you were thinking that she may have actually been somebody's cat at one point.
Yeah. Originally my theory was that she was a feral cat. Well, after taking her to the vet and knowing that she had already been spayed, the new theory is that she had been dumped as a very young cat, that she had gotten spayed, and whoever owned her at the time, decided that they didn't want a cat anymore.
That, if that is true, it is then remarkable that she has survived 12 years as an outdoor cat, and almost certainly entirely because she happened to end up in your backyard, I would think.
Well, yeah, I think it's absolutely amazing. It's unheard of for a feral cat to live that long in someone's backyard. I guess it's possible for a stray cat because if they've already been fixed, then they're less likely to get into fights with other cats, and it helps to calm them down a bit,
Sure.
as I know So yeah, 12 years. It's absolutely amazing that she survived so long without any medical treatment or medical care for that time. And I just think it's amazing, and I'm absolutely thrilled that she decided to come into the garage that night.
So she has been living now inside your house, or at least inside the garage of your house. So tell us a little bit about what the progression in your relationship with her has been.
Well, when I brought her home from the vet in March, I actually moved her to the basement. So I put her litter box and her bed and her food and water bowls in the basement in my workshop. And that's where she had lived for several weeks, 4 or 5 weeks maybe. But when she was still living in the garage, I had mentioned that it was several weeks before she started rubbing up against my leg and rubbing up against my hand. And then out of the blue one day, when I was sitting on the milk crate, just talking to her and letting her rub against my leg, she jumped up on my lap.
Aww.
Again, her idea. She jumped up on my lap.
Aww.
Did
your heart just melt when she did that? It must have. It's been 12 years. And now all of a sudden this cat who you have been taking care of, who wouldn't let you near her for 12 years, has just jumped into your lap. My heart would have been a puddle on the floor at that point.
Absolutely. But I was able to pet her a little more. She was still kind of like a little freaked out. Like if I would pet her too much, she would kind of hiss or,
sure,
maybe like swat me. Once she even nipped me a little.
Okay.
So it was
all to be expected.
A tiny little nip on the hand. So, I kind of stopped petting her. But, I had to pet her very gently. I had to pet her very deliberately. I couldn't rub her like I do my other cats.
Sure.
And, of course, when she moved into the basement, I would go downstairs and maybe watch the evening news or something. And I'd open the door to my workshop and she'd come out and I'd be, sitting in my chair in front of the TV, and she would come over and jump up on my lap and she would rub against me and she would lay down and she would roll over. And again, I would pet her a little more, but again, very carefully, very gently, very
rolling over is huge. I mean, the fact that she rolled over for you is huge.
I agree. She showed me her belly the day I brought her home. Actually, I think it was the day after I brought her home from the vet. She rolled over and showed me her shaved belly.
That's big. That's a really definitely a really big sign of trust for sure. Yep. And so where actually, before we get to where you stand now, I just want to to ask you. So you are a volunteer with several cat rescue organizations. Do you do any work with stray or feral cats, trying to habituate them to human contact or get them comfortable being indoors with people? I mean, was this something you had experience with before Kina, or has this all been a sort of instinctive progression with the two of you?
Well, I've been rescuing stray and abandoned cats personally since 2006, when I first lived or when I first moved to the house where I currently live. That's, of course, when I met Kitty. He had been living in my backyard, and I started feeding him on the back porch, and he was real friendly. As for the cat rescue, the primary cat rescue group that I participate here in Enfield, Connecticut, where I live, it's the Enfield Community Cat Project. I help them with their like promotional and marketing activities. So I don't actually go out and catch any of these cats directly, although I have helped by, taking some of the cats that have, been rescued by the group. I'll see a post about a cat that they rescued, and it's it's always the ones that are like the worst off. Yeah, a little over a year ago, during the height of the pandemic, I became aware of a cat through Enfield Community Cat Project that had been abandoned by its former owner. They moved and just left him, kind of like opened the door and pushed him out into the backyard, and they moved. And this was in the fall, and so he spent the entire winter outside. Yeah. And fortunately, a neighbor contacted one of the Enfield Community Cat Project people, and they were able to go get him. And that's when I became aware of him. But he was in really rough shape. He could barely even walk. He was covered in mats, covered in fleas. He was in really bad shape.
That is very disturbing to hear. I do want to talk about your book a little bit, but so it seems to me, if I'm understanding this correctly, that before 2006, prior to moving into your current home, you were not much of a cat person. You didn't have much experience with cats. You hadn't lived with cats. Is that true, or am I making assumptions?
No, correct. Absolutely, you're right. I mean, it's not like I didn't like cats. I just didn't have much experience.
You didn't have experience. So this is what I would love to hear a little bit more about where things stand with you and Keena now. And then to go back and talk about this cat who you wrote your memoir about, and how he was the cat who made you fall in love with cats. Because I think that's definitely interesting too. So where do things stand with you and Keena now?
Well, Keena has since been moved up to one of the bedrooms.
So now she's in the house proper.
Yeah, absolutely. And she absolutely loves it now. Once every day or so, I'll like open the door and try to get her to come out. But she knows her safe spots in the bedroom. She's come out in the hallway. She's walked down the steps, 2 or 3 steps, but she hasn't come downstairs yet. She has met Phoebe. And she has met Buddy, but she hasn't met the other cats.
Or the dog. The dog might rock her world a little bit.
Correct. She hasn't met the dog yet either.
The dog might make her say, at least when I was outside, I didn't have to deal with with dogs.
Yeah. So, she's coming along. She's great. I mean, we're slowly trying to integrate her because we don't want to overwhelm her. And that's why she's only met Phoebe. And in fact, earlier today, Phoebe was in the bedroom with us, and she was hanging out. And, Phoebe and her touched noses, which
definitely
was
a good sign. It's like shaking hands, sort of.
Absolutely. So it was very cute. But that's where we are now. She's still in the bedroom. She hasn't come out of the bigger house, but she's real sweet. She's real cute. The relationship that she and I have developed is just phenomenal. As we talked about earlier, she shows me her belly. She loves getting, she loves it when I pet her. She sleeps next to me every night.
Aww.
And she's a little purring machine too.
That is so great to hear. And so it sounds to me that Keena and all of your cats owe a debt, although they probably don't realize it, to the first cat, Kitty, who came into your life and who I guess converted you from a guy who never thought about cats one way or the other into a guy who now has 5 cats and counting. So tell us a little bit actually about the book. You wrote a book about Kitty, and that book is called The Kitty Who Rescued Me After I Rescued Him. And why don't you tell us a little bit about this book that you've written?
Sure. It's a great story. It's a story about me and my cats, but focusing on the first cat I rescued, which I named Kitty, and the positive impact he had on me, and how having him in my life helped me through a difficult time.
And what was going on in your life when you first encountered this cat?
Well, at the time, I had moved into my home with my ex-wife. And unfortunately, that marriage didn't last very long. And, Kitty had been, I had immediately started feeding Kitty in the backyard because that's where he was living when I moved in. He was a real cool cat. He would, hang out with me just about every night on the back porch. He would jump up on my lap and rub against me. If I was doing yard work in the yard, one weekend, he would hang out in the grass with me. And he was just a really cool cat.
So he adopted you, it sounds like.
Pretty much, yep.
And again, I think that's something that a lot of our listeners are going to be able to relate to. And did you eventually bring him to live indoors with you?
Absolutely. I moved into the house that I currently live in June of 2006. And that fall, when it started getting really cold out, I put one of those swinging two-way doors in the door to the back porch so that he could come in and he would have a warmer place to stay. And I put a big pillow in the corner for him next to a bowl of food and water. And he would be lying on his pillow every morning when I would leave to go to work. Well, a late fall, it was like late November, early December. It was really cold one morning. And he looked up at me with his beautiful green eyes. And he said, "Dude, just let me in the house." And I told him that I would. So that Saturday, I took him to the local groomer to get all the fleas and ticks taken off him, and so he could get his shots. And anyway, when I brought him home, he became an indoor cat that day, and he never looked back.
It sounds to me like he sensed within you that you were always meant to be a cat guy before you even knew that about yourself.
Absolutely.
And cats are really smart about the knowing things about us, by the way. Well, listen, where can people find this book if they want to read it? It's a wonderful book, by the way, and I definitely encourage people listening to check it out. And where can they find it?
Sure. It's The Kitty Who Rescued Me After I Rescued Him. It's available, through just about anywhere books are sold. You can get it from Barnes & Noble. If they don't have it in stock, you can order it from barnesandnoble.com. Certainly it's available on Amazon. It's available as a Kindle download. It's also available via paperback. And from Barnes & Noble, it's available from paperback or as a Nook download for those who use the Nook devices.
And do you have a website or social media accounts where people who want to check out Kina or see more about your book or see pictures of the rest of your family, any place where they can look for you online?
Sure, absolutely. I am actually, as you know, I use social media frequently.
Yes, I'm pretending like I don't know this. I mean, obviously, you and I have been hanging out together on social media for years. But for the people listening, where can they find you?
It's Shawn Flynn. On Facebook, it's Shawn Flynn. That's ShawnFlynn. And my avatar is me with a black and white cat. That's my personal Facebook page, or my author page is ShawnFlynn.author, and that's at Facebook. And my author avatar is me with a cat sitting behind a table next to my book.
Well, hopefully there aren't a lot of other cat-loving Shawn Flynns out there to confuse listeners, but you've been very specific. Well, Shawn, certainly we wish you and Kina such a long and wonderful life together. It's just such an amazing thing that you've done for this cat and for all of the cats that you have rescued. And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy cat rescuing schedule and writing schedule to come and join us on Curl Up with a Cattail.
Well, thank you, Gwen. I've certainly enjoyed being a guest on your program. And, I hope you and your kitties are having a great day.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks so much to all of you for listening today. Be sure to check us out again next week. And that concludes this episode of Curl Up with a Cattail with Gwen Cooper. Don't forget to invite your feline-loving friends to listen to new episodes along with you. If you'd like to subscribe to this podcast, find out how to get your name and your cat's name included in my next book, or leave comments or questions for me to answer in future podcasts, head on over to gwencooper.com now. Thanks so much for joining me, and don't forget to hug your cat today.